is my project presentation for Intro to Historical Research and Writing. I wrote about Medicine Park, Oklahoma, and my big question was what about Medicine Park made it such a success in the early years as a resort town? Um, my conclusion was two parts. I found out that uh, the location Medicine Park was built on was really perfect for a resort town in Oklahoma. And the second part was the advertising done for Medicine Park, which, especially in the early years, made it a huge success. The primary sources I used were mostly newspapers, um, and I found newspapers about it from all over Oklahoma. Um, I also found some things written by Senator Elmer Thomas, one of which being a autobiography, the other being a article for Prairie Lore. Um, my secondary sources were books, um, and then more articles by Chronicles of Oklahoma and Prairie Lore. I also found a master's thesis on Medicine Park as a resort town, which was very helpful. Uh, the location of Medicine Park is in, as many of you know, is in the Wichita Mountains, just north of Lawton, and the Wichita Mountains are Oklahoma's second largest source of granite, and specifically in Medicine Park, you'll find a lot of pink granite, um, shaped into these river rocks called cobblestones, just like this one. This is my cobblestone. I didn't take it from Medicine Park. I bought it at a garage sale. Uh, but anyway, many of the original buildings in Medicine Park are built with these cobblestones, and it really it offered Medicine Park this natural yet civilized look. It blended into the mountainside, but you knew you were not in the middle of the wilderness, which was really perfect for urbanites, really seeking refuge from the hustle and bustle of, living in towns and cities and whatnot. But I mean, it was also a readily available, cheap resource for building, and worked really well for the buildings, as many of them are actually still standing today. Um, the other part of the location of Medicine Park is the Medicine Bluff Creek, which now runs through the middle of it. And centuries ago, when Native Americans inhabited the area, they thought it had holy medicinal properties. It was a holy site. These Native Americans were often in conflict with the military in the area, who valued it as a water source. Many of the Native Americans thought it had healing properties or could talk with the Great Spirit. Later, that gimmick would be used as advertisements. In 1901, Elmer Thomas came to the area from up north to start his law practice. And when he was hiking with some associates, he came across Medicine Bluff Creek and fell in love with the area. Knew immediately it was going to be a perfect spot for this health spa resort town idea he had. And he began planning almost immediately, but he kept it a secret for many years, except with this associate named H.A. Lloyd from Altus, who he partnered with on the Medicine Park idea, and H.A. Lloyd was actually the big money backer to this project. As Elmer Thomas was just starting out lawyer and didn't really have much funds. Um, they actually bought a lot of the land uh, under the claim that it was for a cattle operation, so that they could avoid the price of land going up. Um, and they had almost all of it until the land around Medicine Bluff Creek was discovered to be owned by Native American tribes. And Elmer Thomas couldn't get the land from them, so he got the city of Lawton involved, which they condemned the land, and then eventually Elmer Thomas got Medicine Bluff Creek from the city of Lawton under the agreement that Lawton would have access to the water source. Because for many years, Lawton had an issue with having a clean water source for the town. Elmer Thomas used this healing waters gimmick to advertise for the town as a health spa. And in 1908, he officially opened the town. And they, just prior to the founding and a little bit after, they had articles selling lots for people to buy in Medicine Park and have a cabin of their own out there. This is more proof that it was really just for the wealthy. As well as the newspaper article saying that Medicine Park amenities would only be for respectable whites. And this was kind of interesting to me because for early 20th century, you really don't think of restrictions to whites. Well, in my case anyway, I didn't think there'd be restrictions in that, like that. And the society pages for newspapers all around Oklahoma seemed to be a buzz about this resort town. There are literally hundreds of articles talking about various families or various couples taking trips to Medicine Park for the week or the weekend or however long. People taking hunting trips and fishing trips, and in the society pages, I mean, that was free advertising. Elmer Thomas used Medicine Park kind of as his own little playground for his wealthy friends, his political associates, and then those people told their friends, and those friends told the society pages, and it just went on from there. And I mean, they had free advertising for several years, if not a couple decades. And I mean, it was all about the elite of society, or the white elite. Medicine Park even had a private shuttle service from Lawton to Medicine Park. There was also, I found several articles of governors and associates of Elmer Thomas, who, I mean, it was front page news that they came to Medicine Park and visited and went on hunting trips. It was, Medicine Park was a very big deal back in the day, and I mean, all this society pages and whatnot. I mean, it really boosted the early success of Medicine Park. And I mean, it stayed that way for a long time. See, where'd I go? In the 1920s, the Native Americans came back again in the advertising of Madison Park. Um, a man by the name of Frank Rush came to the area around that period, and many people don't know that name. I sure didn't before this research paper, but he was manager of the Yellowstone National Park, and he heard about the area and actually came down and became manager of the Wichita Mountain Wildlife Refuge. And so news of Madison Park reached all corners of the United States. Um, he actually put together a Kiowa dance fair in Madison Park um, around 1923, I believe, and it to me it's kind of funny, but first the Indian dances were banned and outlawed, and people were killed over this. And then a few years later, you see people, wealthy white Americans saying, "Hey, come to this see this Native American celebratory dance. It was a gimmick." First they hated it, then once they saw it being marketable, they're hey, let's use this. They were all over the state, but there's one in Madison Park, and then Frank Rush moved his dance fair to a little place called Cratersville. It's about 15 minutes away from Madison Park, 30 minutes away from Cache. And that dance fair remained there for 10 years until the mid-30s when the Depression got real bad. But for 10 years, that Indian dance fair brought so much business to the refuge, to Madison Park, just the area in general. People would come from all around just to see this Kiowa dancing. And I mean, just the advertising, the location, those two things really launched Madison Park into early success. And while it's, a shadow of its former self now, it was really important at one point in history. Many big players in political aspects came to Madison Park. Celebrities came to Madison Park. Bob Wills is probably a name many people don't know anymore, but he was a big country music star back in the early 20th century. And he used to come play in Madison Park. But all this started from two guys looking at a piece of land and seeing what it could be. This also happened in a little place called Hot Springs, Arkansas, which I found eerily similar to Madison Park. It's a small area in southern United States with a supposedly healing water source that became a spa and resort town. And while Hot Springs, Arkansas is much older, being pre-Civil War, the similarities are quite striking between these two towns, and I found that very interesting. I'm pushing 15 minutes, so I'm gonna go. Again, here's a cobblestone. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something.